Hi everybody, I'm Lisa Edney and I'm going to walk you through how I used some of the textures and overlays from April to modify this image from slightly modified from straight out of camera. I actually started off I think here, hold on, there we go, and came to this with some Lightroom edits, and then I took it into Photoshop and created these edits here and did this warmer tone and added in some of those bokeh. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here to my slightly modified. I just increased the shadows, raised blacks. I shot this a little bit dark because I didn't want to blow these out too much and make them too bright. I wanted to be able to come in here and do some changes and some edits to that. So now I'm going to go ahead and right click on it, come over to edit in, and then edit in Adobe Photoshop. And that's going to go ahead and pull this into Photoshop. Now I actually have it open already, so I'm going to run in here to Photoshop, and I've opened another copy of it, but I'm just going to close that one and come back to this original one. So this is the image we just pulled in from Lightroom. And the first thing I want to do is I actually want to come down here and click on this background layer and create a duplicate copy by clicking, dragging down to the plus sign, and then letting go to get that background copy. Reason I'm doing that is I do want to go ahead and update the make these bokeh, or this bright area, a little bit darker. So what I'm going to do is come over here to the patch adjustment tool and click on that and drag this down here to kind of mute that out just a little bit. Don't love that so much. Let's try a different part of the frame. Let's come over here a little bit. Got that line in there. Don't want that line. There we go. And then let's take this dark part too, or this bright part, and then see if we can tone it down just a little bit. So yeah, that's looking a little bit more like what I want. It doesn't have to be super neat, because I'm actually gonna put some texture overlays in here and make that a little bit textured with some of those overlays as well. So, alright, so that looks pretty good. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go over to one of the overlays that we have. And I'm going to just go to the folder where the overlays are saved. And I'm going to navigate through here and go ahead and click and drag this into the image. Now it'll take just a minute. It's going to come up because it is a DNG file. It is actually opening up in Camera Raw first. I made a couple of adjustments, brought down the exposure, decreased the highlights and the whites, and then so that kind of just brought those colors back, and then said OK to bring that into my layer. Alright, so that's what we've got there. I'm going to go ahead and bring this opacity down to about 30%. And I'm going to do, I think I'm just going to leave it as normal. I don't think I'm going to change the layer style or mode. I could leave it as, so let's just do that, and then I'll click OK up here. So that'll lock in that change. And what I actually want to do is I actually want to soften up some of these edges. So I'm going to come over to Filter, and then I'm going to go to Blur, Gaussian Blur. I am going to, let's see if we can find an edge here real quick. Maybe that'll work. There we go. So I just want to come in here. So this is no blur, and I actually kind of want to do quite a bit of blur. So maybe we'll bring it up to like 100%. Yeah, there we go. So you can see how that kind of has changed those, just to kind of soften them just a little bit. Alright, so we're at 30%, and let's go ahead and do, ooh, I like that overlay. I like how it makes it red up in that top corner. Another thing I want to do is maybe paint off some of the filter, so maybe down here in the corner, and maybe I just want to have it affecting that top area. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this add vector mask here. That shows up now on this layer, and I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to click my B for brush tool, And then over here, you can see I've got the black and white selected, so I can switch back and forth or do X to move those back and forth. So black is going to hide, and we're going to go ahead. I've got an opacity of 70%. Black is showing. I've got a pretty big brush. It is, you know, very soft. It's got no hardness to it. So I'm just going to kind of paint this on here and bring back some of those colors and modify that tone just a little bit. All right, so that's looking pretty good. I'm going to add another texture to this. I really loved this rainbow texture in here as well. So I'm going to go ahead, click and drag that right into Photoshop. And that's going to bring up that camera raw screen again. I think for this one I just decreased the exposure just a little bit. It's almost actually a full stop. So I brought that down quite a bit. And I'll click OK and bring that into Photoshop here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and place it. But the next thing that I want to do for this one is I do want to transform it and actually flip it so that the bokeh is over here. To do that, I'm selected on my layer. I'm going to come up to Edit, Transform, and then I'm going to flip this horizontal, and that's going to put those bokeh bubbles right over here. Now this part's a little bit blown out, so I'm actually going to use V, or my Transform tool, and I'm going to hold the Shift key, and I'm just going to ever so slightly bring that up just a little bit, and then I'm going to click OK. Alright, so I'm going to bring that opacity here down to about 20%. Really like the way that's looking, but let's check and see if there's any other blending modes that we like better than just the normal. Ooh, I like that overlay. The soft light's really pretty too. Some of these others are a little bit harder, but you could use them for some pretty unique effects elsewhere. In this case, I think I'm going to come down and we'll just do the soft light. I like how that is soft. And looks really, really good. So that's looking pretty good. Next thing I want to do is I actually want to colorize some of these components just to make them a little bit more yellow, or orangish. So I'm going to create a new layer down here. I'm going to click the plus sign for a new layer. Then I'm going to come up here and do Edit, and I'm going to do Fill. And then instead of black, I'm going to go ahead and say color. I want to do a color. And I'm actually going to pick a color from my flower here. And we'll click OK. And then we'll do OK. And that'll fill that layer with that color. So that looks really good. Now what I want to do is I'm going to come down here and do color. And that kind of turns everything yellow. I don't want it necessarily over here. I just want it on those two layers just to kind of modify them ever so slightly. So what I can do is I can stack these layers so that impacts only those specific layers. So I'm going to hover between these two layers. I'm going to hold the Alt key and that little arrow shows up. So now if I click that, it's going to apply to that layer just below me. So there, you can see that. And if I remove that, you can see how that is now. It was a little more rainbowy with some greens in there. Now it's more yellow, but I keep that awesome shape of those bokeh bubbles. I'm going to add this first texture layer in back down here with the reds, and I'm going to go ahead and stack those as well. I'm going to click that Alt key and pull those in together. So now I've got all of that coming in as that yellow tone to kind of match this flower. So it kind of pulls it in really well. I want to bring maybe this up. So let's check that at like 40. And let's bring this one maybe back up to like a 50 so we can just see a little bit more. It might be a little too much. Let's come back in here. Maybe do 40%. All right. I'm really liking the way that's looking. So again, we kind of started off. Let's see here. There we go. That's where we were. We did some modifications here. If we're a little picky, we could come back in here and be, I don't like really how that turned out. Oops, gotta have the right layer selected. So maybe I can come in here and just soften some of these lines up where the copying was, just to kind of soften that up just a little bit. Yeah, I like that a lot better. All right, so let's turn this back on. pull those layers all on, and there we go. I'm liking the way that looks quite a bit. All right, so that's the edit that we've got for today. Thanks so much.